state dinner is on next week. This is incredibly rare. The last Prime Minister to be honoured with such a dinner was John Howard and Trump. This is only the second one that he's given during his time as president, and of course the first was to Emmanuel Macron. Why is Australia and Scott Morrison being given this very rare honour?
I think the President's been impressed with the Prime Minister. He made it clear that he likes a winner, and Scott pulled off a pretty marvellous victory on the 18th of May. I think also it's a testament to the strength of the relationship, and the President appreciates the fact that Australia is doing what it can to be a strong alliance partner in this part of the world, and indeed in other theatres as well. Now, I think it's a testament to the strength of the relationship and to the bond that the Prime Minister and the President have developed. I was speaking with the Prime Minister the other day, and he was saying to me how warm his reception had been from the President when they had met on the sidelines of various international summits. So I think that the President is very keen to, if you like, warm up the relationship even further, and the Prime Minister, I think, has been very adept and skilled in responding to that.
Well, he quite likes the fact that Scott Morrison had a political upset like he did, and you know the victory was unexpected when it came to the political class and the media.
I think he sees Scott as someone who stands up for, in our case, the quiet Australians, and President Trump would see himself as someone who stood up for those Americans who feel they've been sidelined or marginalised by globalisation and other developments over the last few decades. Even though those developments have been beneficial in an aggregate sense, clearly there have been people left behind, and I think the President has seen himself very much as the champion of those people and their concerns.
Some foreign policy experts like Hugh White say that the price of such a state dinner, such a rare state dinner, will be that the US or Trump will request from us to side with Washington in the battle, if you like, or as Hugh White puts it, the fight against China. Do you think there's an element of truth to this?
We don't need state dinners to work out what's in our national interest, and what's in our national interest is to have a strong US with a continuing presence in the Asia-Pacific. The US is a Pacific power, but we want to encourage the US to remain strong here. We're doing our share of the heavy lifting, and where possible, by increasing our defence spending, doing more of the heavy lifting, and I think we're demonstrating to the US and to other partners in the region, including the Japanese, and to our partners in ASEAN and in Korea, and of course the evolving relationship with India, that we want to be a serious power with global reach, at least in this part of the world.
But isn't that something that Mike Pompeo came close to asking when he visited Australia recently, that we needed to step up our efforts and more side with Washington in the fight for supremacy with China?
I think the Americans have made it very clear that they want us to be as strong a partner as we can be in terms of the Asia-Pacific. But our interests are very close, but they're not completely identical with the US because of where we're located in the region and because of the strong relationship with China. While, yes, we are very dependent on them in terms of trade in particular, we also have leverage because of that trading relationship, and I believe we can be a constructive voice in encouraging China to be a major player in the global rules-based order. So it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. This is not about a binary choice. We have strong interests with the US in this region, and we have a strong interest in a constructive relationship with China, and what we need to be doing as much as we can is encouraging China to be part of that global rules-based order. It means at times that we'll be prepared to stand up on issues where we feel there's perhaps been overreach, but when we do that constructively and behind the scenes so no one is losing face. It's very important for us to show that we're doing this for the right reasons and not seeking to simply take China on for its own sake or because somehow we find them antithetical. We want to get on with them. We want them to be a constructive part of the region. They're an important and big part of the region. because we want the region ultimately to have a peaceful future.
How will Morrison handle any of this type of pressure from the US when he's in Washington next week?
Well, he'll handle it the way he's handled it to date, which is to emphasise the fact that we're a strong alliance partner. We stand up with the US for freedom of navigation as we are in the Straits of Hormuz. That's in our national interest. It's in the global interest that those laneways, those waterways remain as open as possible. We're already demonstrating what a strong partner we are. We were one of the first countries, if not the first country in the West, to put in the foreign interest transparency and donations legislation and the register that goes with that. We banned Huawei from the 5G rollout. So we've been out there taking actions where our interest is at stake, but we're not going to gratuitously seek to rub China's nose in anything. We seek to have a constructive relationship with them, and the Prime Minister is adept and skilled, I think, at explaining that nuanced relationship to the United States.
Do you think, or do you expect that we are going to be asking the US for more of a financial commitment to the Pacific and to the Pacific Islands to counter or balance or limit China's influence in the region?
Well, the Americans are already doing that. I mean, we've stepped up in the Pacific, and we are cooperating with the US and Japan, for example, in an infrastructure partnership in the Pacific. The US, in that sense, is already with us stepping up. And, of course, we have the marine presence in Darwin and all of the other equipment and stuff that go with that. So, I mean, we're already doing a lot, and there'll be more to come in due course.
You're obviously taking over from Joe Hockey in February next year as our ambassador to Washington, an incredibly important role. There's been the news this week that John Bolton has either resigned or been sacked, depending on whose version you believe, as National Security Advisor. What do you think this says about the foreign policy approach of the Trump administration and whether it's shifting?
I don't think it says anything particularly. I mean, the matter of personnel within the US administration is clearly a matter for them, just as our personnel in our government is a matter for us. What's important is that we have important long-term permanent interests which align with those of the US, and the job of the ambassador to the United States is to prosecute those interests. And there are many people in the United States on both sides of the political aisle who have a lot of regard for Australia. We have a lot of friends in Washington, and that provides fertile ground for developing the relationship and getting across our message to the administration.
Hockey has taken quite an unconventional and unique approach to his ambassadorship, which has been very successful with Donald Trump. Are you going to be following in his footsteps?
Well, I don't think anybody can fully take the same approach as their predecessor. We're all different, but I congratulate Joe on the great job he's done and is still continuing to do, because he's there for a while yet. And he's been wonderful at cultivating those relationships with the administration and others. And I see part of my role as cultivating those relationships and also representing our interests to the administration, the Congress, and to Americans in business and in the community. But we each do it in our own way, and that's something that will evolve as I go over there.
Yeah. Do you play golf?
I do, but I'm a bad golfer, but maybe that's a good thing. We'll wait and see.
Maybe that is. You'll be over there just in time for the 2020 election. What do you think the chances are, given the Democratic lineup that we've seen, of Trump being re-elected?
Well, I think it's like any election. A lot depends, of course, on the economic backdrop. And the president is someone who's fought to keep his promises and be seen to be keeping his promises. Who the Democrats will put up is a matter for them. I don't particularly want to comment on individual Democrats, but it'll be a very robust situation. But certainly when it comes to matters involving Australia, on both sides of the aisle in Washington, there's a lot of support for us. And it's very interesting also to see the way in which, on both sides of the aisle in the US, there is a strong determination for the US to, if you like, take China on and push back in areas where they feel that there's been overreach.
on that point of overreach of China, of course, this week you've had locally in Australia a big scandal with Gladys Lewis and the train wreck interview she gave with Andrew Bolton. Do you have concerns over her sitting in Parliament?
Look, Gladys Lewis made a statement about that. She's clarified the comments that she made on Andrew's program, and the Prime Minister has made very clear that we all stand by Gladys. And I think that everything he said I support in that regard. And I believe that Gladys has the capacity to be a very effective member for Chisholm. She's only just joined the Parliament. She's come under a lot of heat initially, but this is the sort of heat that will burnish her shield and make her stronger, I hope.
Before Scott Morrison and the Liberal Party gave their support to her, there were some concerns raised within the Liberal Party, that's been in the media over the past couple of days. Would the Liberal Party have run her candidacy past ASIO to check that there weren't any issues?
I'm not aware of whether that was done. It would be unusual, I would think, to do that, but I'm not aware of whether there was any communication in that regard.
But you do have confidence that there are no ongoing links with any propaganda arm of China, of Beijing?
Well, what I have confidence in is what Gladys has said in her statement and the Prime Minister's capacity to stand by her. And don't forget that the Prime Minister is privy to more information than I would be in that regard.